They believed they had you cornered with their games. They thought if they dangled approval, withdrew it, and sprinkled just enough attention to keep you hooked, you would bend yourself into their mold. That's how manipulation works. It feeds on the illusion that you cannot exist without their validation. But instead of crawling, you stood. You noticed the pattern, the same cycle repeated with different disguises. They gave you just enough to keep you starving, hoping you'd never realize you could feast elsewhere. You rose above it when you stopped chasing what they were rationing and began supplying yourself with what they could never give: clarity. That moment marked your liberation. They did not expect it. They thought the strings were invisible, but you cut every one of them without fanfare. That's why they lost. What most people fail to understand is manipulation depends on reaction. A manipulator survives only when you respond to their script. They bait you with guilt. They test you with silence. They tempt you with promises. You break the cycle when you stop reacting the way they anticipate. That is how you won, not by louder arguments or sharper words, but by refusing to dance to the rhythm they dictated. You starved the parasite of its fuel. When they wanted chaos, you gave them stillness. When they wanted tears, you gave them calm. When they wanted control, you gave them indifference. The strength to withhold reaction is what reversed the power dynamic. They thought they were orchestrating a play. You ended the production by walking off the stage entirely. In relationships, manipulation thrives on emotional hunger. They test how much you're willing to lose in order to keep them close. They guilt you into sacrificing your boundaries. They confuse you with half-truths. They gaslight you into doubting your memory. It works until the day you decide that peace is more valuable than proximity. You chose yourself, and that is when you rose above. You realize that love cannot be real if it is conditional upon obedience. You realize loyalty is not proven by how much pain you can endure, but by how much clarity you can keep. By walking away from their games, you taught yourself that survival is not enough. You deserved freedom. That was the victory. In friendships, manipulation takes the shape of competition. They push subtle insults, wrapped as jokes, to see if you'll defend yourself. They dangle inclusion, and then withdraw it to measure how badly you need belonging. They twist your successes into threats, hoping to destabilize your confidence. When you stop defending yourself, when you stop begging for a seat at their table, you shifted the power. You built your own table, and suddenly, the people who once dictated your worth lost all authority. You won because you understood that any friendship built on control is a friendship designed to keep you small. You left, and by leaving, you proved that solitude with dignity is greater than company in chains. At work, manipulation can be even subtler. It comes dressed as opportunity but weighted as exploitation. Supervisors play on ambition, offering praise while piling responsibility without reward. Colleagues act supportive to your face, while undermining you behind your back. The trap is always the same. They want you distracted by optics, so you don't see the imbalance of power. You won by refusing to confuse recognition with respect. You rose above by seeing that not every opportunity is progress. You learned to say no, to set boundaries, to refuse to trade your future for temporary approval. That refusal was your victory, because in denying them control of your ambition, you preserved the longevity of your path. Psychology reveals the mechanics of why you rose. Manipulation is effective because it exploits unconscious needs: your need for validation, your fear of abandonment, your desire to be liked. But when you dragged those needs into the light and admitted them to yourself, they lost power over you. Self-awareness is the antidote to manipulation. Once you see the game, you cannot unsee it. You understand the levers they pull, the traps they design, the illusions they weave. And knowledge, when coupled with discipline, makes you untouchable. They could not bind you anymore, because you knew where every rope was tied. There is cruelty in rising above, because it denies manipulators the satisfaction of watching you suffer. They thrive on your spirals, they drink from your confusion, they live off your defensiveness. When you stopped feeding them, they starved. Your silence broke them more than your words ever could. Your laughter in the face of their schemes was a dagger, because it revealed how small their tricks really were. Nothing unsettles a manipulator more than the moment they realize you don't even need to fight them to win. Your indifference itself becomes the victory. You also won because you learned patience. Manipulators rely on urgency. They pressure you to react quickly so you don't have time to see the trap. You slowed down. You let them expose themselves. You observed instead of reacting, and in observation, you discovered their weakness. Manipulators hate being predictable, but they are the most predictable of all because they always return to the same methods. You waited long enough to watch the cycle repeat, and then you used that knowledge as your shield. Their cleverness was no longer clever. It was recycled, stale, boring. And when manipulation becomes boring, it becomes powerless. In love, in work, in family, in society, rising above manipulation means you no longer fight for the small wins they designed to distract you. You see the bigger picture. You realize the only real victory is autonomy, the ability to live free of their control. They want you tangled in endless disputes, justifying yourself in circles. You walked out of the maze. That is why you won. The game only works when you play. By refusing to play, you flipped the script completely. You rose above not by being louder, but by being wiser. Reading motives also creates a sense of authority that unsettles others, because you're no longer responding to what they say. You're responding to what they mean. Most people are used to their words being taken at face value. They rely on tone, on delivery, on crafted performance to shape how others see them. But when you cut through all that and engage with the intent instead of the script, you place yourself in a position above them. They feel smaller, weaker, suddenly exposed. That sense of exposure eats at them because it means their tricks no longer land. And once tricks stop working, influence evaporates. Authority in that moment shifts toward you, not because you demanded it, but because you understood the currents underneath the surface. That is the cruel beauty of awareness. It gives you power without you having to reach for it. When you read motives, conversations stop being about what is said and start being about what is concealed. They may compliment you, but you hear the insecurity wrapped beneath. They may challenge you, but you detect the desperation hiding inside their bravado. They may apologize, but you notice the calculation in their timing. This level of clarity unsettles people because it steals their ability to control the narrative. They are used to manipulating perception. When you strip away perception and see the naked intention, they lose their advantage. That is where your authority grows. You don't overpower them with noise, you reduce them with truth. And truth, when revealed calmly, always carries the sharpest edge. Authority gained from reading motives is different from authority gained from title or power. It's not external. It doesn't come from rank, wealth, or influence. It comes from your ability to see. People feel it when they talk to you, because they can sense that you are not listening like everyone else. You are dissecting, noticing, evaluating. You give nothing away, yet you gather everything. That asymmetry of awareness tilts the interaction in your favor. Even if you never say what you know, they feel it. They feel the imbalance, and that imbalance makes them tread carefully. They can't fake confidence in front of someone who can read the tremors behind it. In relationships, this authority is even more profound. A partner who once used guilt or passive aggression suddenly loses their grip when you begin to notice the motive behind every gesture. They wanted to provoke you into defense, but instead you respond with calm observation. That unnerves them. They don't understand how you can see so clearly what they are trying to hide. It shifts the balance of love itself. You no longer need to explain yourself endlessly because you already understand where their words are coming from. You no longer fall into spirals because you recognize their triggers aren't about you, but about their own insecurities. Reading motives keeps you from being controlled, and in doing so, it establishes a presence that feels immovable. At work, this skill turns you into someone others can't easily manipulate. They may dress up exploitation as opportunity or flattery as partnership, but you know what's really being offered. That makes them uncomfortable. They don't like dealing with someone they can't fool. Your awareness shifts the room. It forces people to think twice before they approach you with false promises or twisted deals. Authority here doesn't come from how loudly you speak in meetings. It comes from the fact that people can sense you are not naive. You won't be the one blindsided, and that changes the way they treat you. Suddenly, your presence carries weight. You become the person people hesitate to cross, not because you threaten, but because you can see too much. The psychology behind this is simple yet ruthless. Human interaction is built on a delicate exchange of hidden motives. Most people navigate these exchanges without ever truly analyzing them. They fall into traps of guilt, envy, or manipulation because they don't recognize the engine driving the words. You do. You take the extra step of asking yourself, why are they saying this now? What do they gain from it? What do they fear? That reflection gives you dominance without confrontation. They sense it when you're in the room because they can't lie comfortably around you. They feel watched, even if you never speak the truth aloud. That discomfort is the silent crown you wear. Authority born from reading motives makes others question themselves. They walk away from conversations replaying what they said, wondering what you caught, what you missed, and what you already know. That is why it unsettles them so deeply. It doesn't just strip away their influence in the moment, it lingers. It makes them paranoid about the image they present, fearful of the cracks you may have noticed, and paranoia itself is power. You don't have to dominate them openly. Their own second guessing does the work for you. That's the hidden cruelty of awareness. It makes them afraid without you ever needing to raise your voice. In love, this awareness becomes a filter. It allows you to separate those who care for you from those who simply care for control. Someone who manipulates with sweet words gets exposed by your eye for intent. Someone who offers loyalty only when it serves them is revealed before they can trap you. Reading motives ensures that you don't waste years investing in illusions. It saves you from being drained by relationships designed to consume rather than build. That kind of foresight may feel cold, but it is necessary. Better to walk away early than to drown later. That clarity is how you win. Even in silence, your authority grows. You don't need to call out every motive you read. Sometimes the silence itself is enough. They feel seen, even if you say nothing. They adjust their behavior around you without being told. That adjustment is respect born out of fear, and that fear comes from the awareness that their words are not fooling you. Silence, when paired with insight, becomes louder than confrontation. You let them squirm, and their own discomfort gives you control. That is authority of the purest kind, not demanded, not announced, but undeniable.